So many moments that we can reveal and go over since the game ended so in such a dominant fashion. TSM, when Reginald on the desk earlier was
60-40 was a little
well, that's the thing. I mean, I respect
generous.
that. I respect that because it does reflect the mindset of the team in that they're not going to walk in expecting, 100 to 0. We're for sure going to win this game. And it allows for performances like this, right?
Yeah,
to respect your opponent, but still look dominant.
The players look up to him, and if he sets the bar for the mentality that the players need to have, they go in respecting their opponents, not getting too cocky. The performance is going to be more consistent. So
absolutely. Well, let's dive right into this one and kind of pick it apart. Let's look at champion select and start with that. It's funny at the beginning of the day you talk about, we don't see the Azir Zed matchups. We do see the Azir LeBlanc matchup in this one in the mid lane
But
today.
I think the reason why the LeBlanc came out is not for the matchup 1v1 itself, but
Okay.
for how LeBlanc can affect the side lanes, particularly because of Jax. So if you leave Jax open, CLG has shown they're going to take Jax into anything.
Right.
And Jax against LeBlanc is a very difficult matchup because when LeBlanc hits her spikes and she's able to roam to the side lanes very freely, Jax has no chance of defending against that. He can be dove, he can just be constantly punished. And we saw by the time they came to grouping, Bjergsen was just popping Darshan left, right, and he was unable to do that, and he wasn't even winning the 1v1 matchup.
Well, a big thing too is, he didn't take Ignite, right? It wasn't like he was like,
Right,
I'm gonna go fight HuHi and kill him. He brought TP to assist in these 1v1 side lane fights that are gonna happen between an Irelia and a Jax. And so
that was just kind of the theme of the game for TSM, right? Was that it wasn't one individual player, as we see CLG on your screens now, kind of re-gearing for game 2. They're going to have to diagnose what the issue was for them and come back stronger. But continuing on the TSM point, it really was this game, as most of their games are, this split about teamwork. It wasn't, I'm going to beat you in my lane. I'm going to, I'll beat this guy in my lane. And then we'll meet each other at the Nexus. This was very much a team effort, showcased very early on. Only 9 minutes into the game, we see First Blood come out in the mid lane, but it's because TSM, very smart response to aggression by CLG.
Right, I like how if you just look at the minimap right now, both teams are totally clumped up on the bot side in the river, and when HuHi starts going for this fight, you can see just how much faster TSM decides. I mean, obviously they have Sivir, but Xmithie's still messing around on the red buff at this point. He didn't come with the rest of the team the way that TSM all moved together. He could have dropped that red buff to come to this fight and maybe help influence it, but TSM as a unit all move at the same time, and they all agree that you can get back to whatever else we might do later. Let's go fight this mid fight. And
that's the power of the Sivir ultimate. The collapse is going to be so much faster.
Well, it's always going to be faster, but the Xmithie didn't even come.
Right.
He's still on his red buff. You can go to that fight and then go to your red buff or something. I don't think it's the right decision to, when a big fight's erupting, to split your team up.
Right, exactly. That's only one of the instances in which we kind of saw TSM outclassing CLG in terms of coordination. Another example of that, 18 minutes into the game, we see a dive top lane coordinated by TSM, and then very soon after, a couple kills bot lane.
Right, I mean, this is just such a good play by TSM. They crash the wave top lane. Hauntzer starts the dive off. Sven finishes it off. That was extremely quick. Now Xmithie's caught out of position with Bjergsen coming in from behind. They pick up these 2 quick kills, and because CLG's thinking that everyone's topside, they want to go really hard bottom. So Aphromoo starts collapsing from the mid lane. HuHi's going to start making his way down. But even though they should win this 2v2, it'd still be close. But with the Bjergsen TP coming in, which CLG probably lost track of, it's just not going to be close at all. Doublelift's able to kite out. Yeah, he had a monster spell shield on that stun.
It just kind of pays dividends to the theme that we're seeing a lot of these games where one team is ahead in the tempo. They're making the plays left, right, and center, and outclassing the other team. And instead of just kind of taking the loss and playing it a little bit slower, the other team just seems to kind of try to push back against that by making these really rash decisions and not really thinking things through, which happens time and time again in a lot of these matches. And it's showcased here by trying to go for that collapse without HuHi being there. Had HuHi preemptively moved towards the bot side and they would have started that as a 3v3, they could have easily won that fight. But because they're uncoordinated and rushed, it goes poorly.
TSM in their huddle now, looking forward to game 2 after a 27-minute victory. They've got to be feeling good, but of course they need to make sure that they walk in, give their opponents the same respect that they did in game 1. I'm sure that's what Weldon is helping remind them about in this brief respite that they have moving forward.
Well, I want to have to credit the coaching staff and the preparation quite a bit for this match, because I really think the draft was really intelligent. Because you'd expect TSM to be picking the likes of Lucian, the Bard, or the Braum, or the
even the nidalee for themselves.
Yeah, even the nidalee, champions that they've played time and time again, but they completely opt out for something else that they know is going to be very effective against CLG. I mean, HuHi could have flashed out a Bard ult almost every time, but he never chose to and got punished for it.
Player of the game, Bjergsen on that LeBlanc. I mean, we talked about it. His ability to affect those side lanes, taking the TP, knowing that it's not about beating HuHi in the mid lane, it's about beating the entire map.
Yeah, I mean, before Bjergsen was the guy that would take Ignite on LeBlanc, and everybody would be like, well, I guess that's your problem, mid lane, that you got to deal with Bjergsen. And now everybody has to deal with him by TPing into their lane, so that's got to be scary playing against that.
Yeah, I mean, you can see that there were a lot of points in this game where CLG wasn't completely getting crushed, but then next thing you know, Bjergsen shows up, and it's a different story. So.
All right, well, that's just game one. CLG still has a chance to strike back, but TSM is looking dominant as ever. We've got to head to a short break before we get to that second game on the back end of this 3.5 minutes. Stick with us. We'll see you soon.